Right about now, there's two types of FPL managers. The ones chasing points and the ones building positions. The difference between the two, that's usually what defines the end of the season. So at this stage, the game changes. Early on, you can afford to experiment. Mid-season, you just adjust. But now, every decision has got weight behind it. Every move either compounds or corrects something that you did. And what we're seeing across the board is most managers are trying to fix last week, buying the points that they just missed, taking hits to catch up, convincing themselves that they need to do something, anything to close the gap. And that's chasing. And chasing feels right because it's active. But more often than not, it's just panic dressed up as strategy. Building looks different. It's quiet. It's slower. It becomes comfortable holding when everyone else is moving. It thinks in blocks, not game weeks. And most importantly, it's accepting that you don't need to catch everything. You just need to catch the right things at the right time. So the question for this week isn't just who you're bringing in. It's which side are you on? Because one of them is trying to win the week and the other is trying to win the running. Let's get into it.
Truth be told, when I wonder what the future holds, it's impossible to process, so I stay focused on my progress.
Oh, at the backside, I'm seeing it.
Oh, no. What's that about?
It's dark days, is it?
Been away. It's dark days, bro. It's dark days. It's dark days. I thought seeing you being out on the coast, sunning it up, I thought I'd get my shades out, but for different reasons, Hots. This season's been atrocious. So, yeah, you do your thing. I'm gonna lay back today and just chill because, yeah, it's dark days. So, yeah, crack on.
Okay. Anyway, for those that would have witnessed last week, they would have seen that I was missing. Obviously, I went away for a couple of weeks for my birthday. As Guffs just mentioned, obviously I was in the sun, so tan's fading out a bit, but you may notice that I'm a bit darker. But yeah, it's good to get away, good to get a break from everything. But at the same time, my holiday was ruined. Literally on the second to last episode, big up Abdul, FPL seller. It was discussed that I was definitely bench boosting, and I actually did the episode while I was away. So I did it from my balcony on my ship, on the cruise ship I was on. And in that episode, I said that I'm definitely bench boosting. I have to take it on the chin that the bench boost didn't activate. So I have to just blame myself. I can't use the ship's internet or any other bullshit as an excuse.
So you guffed
the
it
time
up.
difference. Basically, I did. I did guff it up. I wasn't going to take a shot, but literally I did. When I went to do my final double check, which I would do usually before the deadline closes, I missed it by an hour or so because of the time difference. So the deadline on my side was early in the morning, basically. So it caught me off. But I still thought that my bench boost is activated at the time. How I'm probably explaining it now is a lot calmer than it would have been in the last episode that I couldn't make. And if I did do social posts, but at that point, I just had to accept that I fucked up. And yeah, it was a big one. Obviously, my aim, we're talking about chasing and what type of manager we're going to be or towards the end of the season. And my aim has always been to climb rank. I believe that will get under 1 million because that's foreign territory to me. But the bench boost had a big impact on me. I had 28 points sitting there, waited after planning weeks upon weeks on what I was going to do and how I was going to execute it, all because of a click of a button. And yeah, that impacted my holiday. I can't lie, I was pissed for days. Even in paradise, I was pissed. Move forward. onto the last game week. And obviously, I'm sitting in the middle because I beat you two. It was an okay free hit. A lot of the players I put in didn't do what I wanted them to do. And I'm still thinking back about my bench boost, 28 points. Almost didn't even care about the free hit points this week and even being in the middle.
Have you done any kind of scenario modeling to see where you think it would have taken you to?
Yes, which makes it worse because obviously I'm out, like I said, I'm out of the millions, so to speak. So I'm 900 and something now.
Yeah.
Those 28 points would have shot me up. Still somewhere that I don't want to be, but in a much better place than I am now. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm livid. It's where another game week gone, and I'm still pissed about that game week because it's just a mistake that I've never. It's the biggest mistake of my FPL career. There's 4 weeks left for me to push.
So I guess it's the strategy for you now is a big thing, right? Because obviously we've had the confirmation about the double game week and the lack of another double game week. So there's one double left, and then the rest is what it is, I guess. And you still got a good couple of chips, right?
Yeah. So what I was meant to have done is the wild card, so I could bench boost, then the free hit, and then be left with one chip. But unfortunately, even though I didn't bench boost, it made sense to use the free hit because my team was set up for that strategy, which is what pisses me off. So,
But see, even in that, right, because you followed that process, it ultimately did end up with you back in the middle, right? And you did better than a lot of other people because weekly average wasn't exactly high either, right? I know it's scant consolation because obviously you had the process that you were following a plan and so on. But in reality, like still following through with that process that you've got has kind of got you to where it got you back into the middle where you want to be anyway, right? But
I think that's what makes it worse for me. It's like over the last 2 weeks, I've done well.
Yeah.
So everyone that didn't have a bench boost in that game week, the points I got was challenging that, and it was a decent game week. But I had a bench boost, and that's what I was playing towards doing. So the fact that it wasn't activated, and I just got 28 points sitting on the bench. We've had early in the season bench points where they're like, wow, imagine we did our bench boost in this single game week. We're talking 12 points or 14 points, and we would have been happy with that. But to plan it in a double and get 28 points and put the players in that I put in only for that double game week, it's now put me in a dilemma because now I need to start thinking about who I'm going to put in, who am I going to want to bench boost, how am I going to get the players in that I want to bench boost with. So it's giving me more of a headache to use the fucking bench boost now. And usually I try to not swear and all of this stuff, but me swearing is my way of not doing a crash out. And I'm not doing a crash out on this episode. I'm not trying to go viral. I'm not trying to do gimmicks. I'm not putting shades on and all this type of shit. I'm just pissed off genuinely. And I just want the season to end. And 28 points sitting there is a dickhead move. So I'm just fuming. Good time for me to stop talking about it. I won this game week. My free hit was used. Got 2 chips left, 4 game weeks to use them. My strategy's out the window. I'm obviously going to provide the best advice possible and, have common sense with it. But in all honesty, I'm nowhere near where I was before I went away, because before I went away, my strategy was clear all the way through to the end.
Yeah.
But because I've got this extra chip to use, if you ask me, when am I planning to use it? As you said, the announcement's come out. There's a double game week 36 and that is it. So now it's a case of I've got 2 chips. Which chip do I use in that game week? And then when do I use the other chip? And in the back of my mind, I'm always going to think, where can I potentially get 28 points from when I use it? And that's impossible. If I somehow manage to do that, that would be incredible, but I know it's not going to happen. So I just want to use it in a week where I can get as close to it so it just softens the blow. But yeah, I'm absolutely livid. I hope that you guys, even though it was a great intro, like I said, I hope you two dominate this episode because, yeah, everything's going to come back to my pain and I don't want to be focused on that. But yeah, anyway, another game week to me. I don't think I can be caught by you guys now. So even now, even if I don't win the other 4 game weeks, I've still won between us. Tally-wise, points-wise, maybe I could get caught, I don't know. But for these chips I've got that I haven't used, I don't see how. Obviously, the man in the shades, it's doubtful you will catch me if I'm being honest. Arc is still you got a couple chips yourself, so yeah, you know what I mean. You got 2 chips on purpose. I haven't, so that's what's pissing me off. So you might have a strategy that might make you catch me on points, and I'm gonna be more vexed. You get me? But anyway,
Do you know what? I think
we
that
move forward.
I think I've got a strategy. However, I knew that last game week was going to be quite low scoring for me anyway, because it was the blank and I wasn't doing anything significant in it. But it's allowed you to accelerate that little bit too far for me, I think, because you're talking about an 80-point swing, but you still got a load of chips. So I think it's very unlikely. If it happens, obviously I'll be skinning teeth like this blues brother over here, but I'll have something to skin my teeth for.
Well, you know, what can we say? But, you know, it's sad. But I do want to say this though, and I want to cast your minds back to the very opening game week when I made a mistake and I played the bench boost by accident. Remember that?
Was it a mistake though?
Oh, was it a mistake?
I'm asking.
I think it was a mistake. Yeah, it was a mistake. I said it at the time it was a mistake.
You played your bench boost by accident.
By accident. Remember that?
When yeah, I remember you saying it, but obviously we questioned it at the time because you can cancel a bench boost.
Well, you can cancel, you can activate. It's the same thing. So press a button, isn't it? But
no, it's not the same thing. You can cancel what you've activated when it's not a wild card. So therefore, if you've done it by accident, you can rectify it and correct your accident. So there is a difference. It's not the same thing.
Well, either way, the bench boost was meant to be played and it was played. And I seem to remember a lot of hee-heeing going on at the time. So pardon me for not, wallowing in your pain right now. But,
I don't expect it, to be honest. You're trying to catch me, so why would you want me to extend my lead on you?
I've like I said, the glasses are on for a reason. This season's over. I said it last week in last week's podcast that the white flag was fully flown in. So I've got no aspirations to win anything this season. It is what it is. I'm just simply making a point, that when I played the bench,
I didn't ask for your sympathy.
I wasn't saying you're asking. I'm simply making a point. Yeah, but I'm not asking for anyone's sympathy. You
made a mistake in game week 1 after running your mouth and talking about you're the people's champ and how you're going to defend your title and how you're out the triple captains.
Run my mouth or not.
It was funny that someone that running their mouth did shit. I'm not saying you could laugh if you want. You can't laugh because I'm above you. That's all it is. There's a difference. If you was winning and I did this, you would be laughing.
I'm simply making a point. That's it.
Dead point. Dead point.
Really. I'm just saying.
I think it's a dead point.
Well, it's not really. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's a dead point. It's not the same comparison.
Well, it is. A mistake is a mistake, is it not? I made a mistake. I've got no problem coming in here and saying that I played a bench boost and effed up. God knows I've effed up a lot this season. So I've got no problem at all manning up to mistakes because I made a lot this season. But that particular game week, I made a mistake. And there was a lot of laughing going on. So, anyway. The game week was a game week. It was shoddy. I'm sure we'll get into the whole teams in a minute. It's very tough to carry on and to be positive about game weeks ahead. Cunha not playing was just like the further now in a coffin that's way, way, way below ground for me right now. And it is what it is, I think Jonas did say in a show a few weeks ago when I asked his advice, he said, "I'm going to need to have a lot of luck going my way." And yeah,
I think he was being polite.
he may have been polite. He may have been polite, but I also think he was accurate. I needed a lot of luck
He
going my
was
way.
accurate because while being polite. Obviously, for anything to be going for you, you need a lot of luck on your side and probably a lot of research behind what you're doing. So he was being polite and he was accurate, but it is what it is, right? As you said, you've made a lot of mistakes and you are where you are because of that. It is what it is, right? You just got to try to do better next season. Represent yourself better next season.
Well, since we're kind of talking about what happened last week, and we know that the theme of the episode is us talking about whether we're chasing or building. Guffs, looking at your team, what were you doing? Were you chasing or were you building? And where do you think things were driven by emotion rather than you being logical?
And this particular game week was just about survival for me, really. You know, I was aware that people were going to be playing a free hit this game week, because a lot of people's strategies obviously was what Hots was trying to achieve, which was the bench boost followed by the free hit, which was the logical game plan.
Yeah, but what about for you? I know you're talking about other people, but for your
I'm getting onto that. So the point I'm trying to make is that my team was always going to be behind the 8 ball because I'm competing against a lot of free hit teams out there, and I needed a lot of luck this game week. And then, you know, as I said a while ago, little things like Cunha, who was in my team, not playing, didn't help. I guess, you know, the positives, because I'm going to start there. The positives, Dewsbury Hall, I brought in as a little kind of, you know, a curveball, and it worked out well for me. He got a goal, so that was quite nice. But the game week started badly and ended badly. It started with 2 defensive assets from Sunderland conceding 5 goals. They've been rock solid all season long. And the first time I do double Sunderland, well, they have been pretty good at home all season long. They've had a couple of games where they've not done well, but by and large, been very good at home. I don't think anyone saw them conceding 5 goals. That's for sure. To Nottingham Forest. So
no one saw them conceding 5 goals, but I don't think loads of people went out trying to double at the back for Sunderland when they started off the season on fire defensively at home, as you said. But they've been conceding recently, so maybe that was just a slip on your side. But hey,
well, it wasn't a slip. I haven't got the opportunity to play free hit. Like I said, my team was my team, so I had to make a choice in terms of the assets I had, given I haven't got free hit to play, and I chose to go for a Sunderland team against a struggling Nottingham Forest team at home. Hey,
I remember what you were saying beforehand. Since you want to talk about previous seasons, what I remember you saying was that teams fighting for something are the team that you're going to be looking for, right? I know what you said so Nottingham Forest are fighting for survival and had been just come off the back of another win. So Sunderland don't know what they're fighting for.
Like I said, I haven't got a free hit. I wasn't not really. I haven't got the ability to. I'm not going to take minuses to take out Sunderland players on my team for a home game against Nottingham Forest. That to me doesn't make sense, right? If you haven't got a free hit and you've got Sunderland players at home to Nottingham Forest at 4th and bottom, you're going to play your Sunderland players. That's just what you're going to do.
Yeah, I guess your point is that you didn't buy them in, right? You already had them.
Right. I had them players, right? Obviously, I can rotate my goalkeepers and certain defensive assets, but you know, given what the players I had in my squad, you gotta make that choice and think, okay, they're home to Nottingham Forest. Hey, Forest can score a goal, right? That's fair. But to concede 5 was like ridiculous. So what I'm saying is that, you know, even if Arsenal are playing at home to Burnley and they concede a goal, that happens. But you know, I get the complete annihilation for my defense, which was hard to take. So the game week started badly from the get go, really, and it was sandwiched by the end of the game week, Man United, when Cunha obviously didn't make the team. So that was my sort of player I had that most players didn't have in their team, and he didn't play. So again, because I had 11 players and 4 players on my bench who were ineligible to play because of the blank game week, I essentially playing with 10 players. So it was a horrible game week all around for me. Going forward, I mean, it's just a case of, just doing the best I can week to week, really. I mean, that's all I can do. Obviously, I do have my bench boost left, like the two of you. But looking at the sort of the whole game, there are lots of players who don't have the bench boost left, haven't played it in 33. So there's an opportunity to make up a little bit of ground at some point, I guess, in the 36.
Have you got transfers with your team?
I have one transfer available to me. So I haven't got much.
Okay. Just one, basically. Nothing built up.
Nothing built up. Because I basically made the transfer. I made the transfers sort of ahead of the 33, knowing that I was going to obviously have to put a team on the pitch for this game week. So I had to use my transfers then. But yeah, it is what it is. And we move forward. And it's been a shit show from the very beginning. From the beginning of the season, it's been playing catch up. And what this season has shown me more than any other season, I think, is, and I think we spoke about it before on the show, there's lots of players out there who know how to play this game now, and I think that it's very difficult now to make up ground. Years gone by, you could fall behind 100 points, 200 points, and potentially eat it up fairly quickly. It's difficult to do that right now. Everyone is so well informed, so engaged, even at this late stage of the season. I think that kind of like anxiety has been building as the season's gone on, as I've been making changes and not making those indexes into people above me. And it's slightly eroded my decision-making process. And this is where I am.
As for my team, I've suffered over the past couple of weeks from different axle variants. So obviously, the week before last, we had effectively Chelsea, every major asset for them either went injured or didn't even make the squad. And this week, one of the punts that I made was Solanke, and he got injured within the first half. So with Solanke, I was playing the fixtures. The idea was that, Tottenham would have slipped up. Middlesex ultimately had their they would have a lot of shots, etc., against Wolves, and Wolves, obviously their headers started to come down over the past couple of weeks, but it just didn't work out like that. I took a minus last week because looking at projections and things that I could see happening with the team, I didn't think that I had enough. So I brought Eze in, and obviously he got me the points. I wouldn't usually go in for a 1 week punt, but I also knew that I was going to be doing wildcard in 35. So if that punt could do its job for me in terms of returning some points, it would make up. And yeah, I guess that's where I was. So I didn't expect to have a high scoring week. What I would say is that it was just one of those times and one of those moments where I tried to remain logical and logic didn't repay. I mean, Thiago having literally 5 chances and still coming out of all of that with an XG of 0 is quite phenomenal. I had Dango hit the post. Good things were Verts. Wilson won't be with me for any much time longer. I think that wave is now well and truly gone. And it just is what it is. I've just got a lot of ground to try and make up within the next 2 weeks, as I'll be using a wild card, and then clearly we've got a double game week, so I'll have to weigh up whether triple captain or bench boost is the way to go. What about you, Hots? Your game week?
After the devastation, after the devastation of not doing the bench boost, it took me a while to even do my free hit, because like I said, it might not sound like something natural when you're on holiday, but I was pissed. So I sort of struggled to do my free hit until later. But I had to not make sure I didn't miss another deadline. So I sort of tried to do what I wanted to do with my bench boost and not have the same players as everyone else. Obviously, there's going to be some that everyone's going to go for, i.e., I put Porro in. I felt that, I wanted to put, well, as you saw on the bench, I had the Spurs keeper, but, Raya was the right choice. But I thought Spurs would keep a clean sheet, so I wanted to have one defender, but I didn't want to overdo it with Spurs. I put Virgil back into my team again because I just thought that he could do something. And obviously, I believed Arsenal would hold a clean sheet, so I went to double at the back, which is what my team was before I did my wildcard. Fernandes stayed in my team, done what he's been doing. But I guess the letdowns were Salah. Obviously, we know what happened there. He got one. Like you did, Solanke got the one. But I guess it was, yep. And then what the Watkins and Roger one was the one that upset me, because those are the two that I thought people might think about Watkins, but they're not going to have Rodgers. They're not going to go to Villa. But I'm looking at Villa fighting for the Champions League spot. They're going to go there and they're going to get a result, and Rodgers will probably be involved. So for them to just lose, it was like dickheads. Like, this is the last thing I needed after fucking I'm trying to let me go back to the allowing the profanities. But yeah, like after the bench boost, it was like, at least my differentials come off this week and I have an amazing scoreline. It might make me feel better, which was a decent scoreline. But Rodgers, Watkins flopped, Salah injured, Solanke injured. I put Rice in thinking Arsenal might up the levels a little bit, get a couple goals or something, and he might be involved. But obviously that didn't work out either. But Bowen got me the assist. That was decent, and I just moved forward, bro. Like overall free hit, can't really complain. I've got a green arrow. Like I said, I broke into the thousands now, so I'm not in the millions. But yes, it's very hard to be happy with anything at the moment. So I just got to see the next week's and progress.
Fail to plan to fail. My nan must be still praying for me, yeah? So yes, this is very true in terms of FPL. We are getting straight into our theme as it stands now. So, chasing. What are common mistakes that we have made as well as what we see other managers make? Because a lot of times when people are chasing, they don't necessarily take the context of a fixture into account, right? And this comes back to the phrase that you coined before, Hots, about minutes, forms and fixtures. Like, we do need to look at those things, but obviously when you start chasing, psychologically, you start ignoring some of these things. There are any examples where you guys have seen that happen for yourselves in terms of some of the picks that you've made over the past couple of weeks?
Yep, for me, in my free hit,
yep,
I decided to go with Watkins and Rodgers to be like a differentials from. I didn't think no one would double up on Villa, and I felt that Villa would, go out and win that game. I felt that they were fighting for the Champions League spot, so it would be something that they'll go and have a good game, especially after Watkins scoring in the previous game. But obviously, the form of Rodgers and Villa as a whole hasn't been that great. But I sort of went with a guess, like, oh, you know what? I believe Villa should do it, so I'm just going to try to be differential. I was just trying to be smart, I guess, trying to go against what other people are doing so I can just gain that way, which flopped. So if I just stuck to thinking about who's actually, guaranteed to start, for example, who's going to play 90 minutes and who was in better form, I probably could have made better choices than who I put in. That's the absolute truth. Gibbs White is a perfect example of that. In my free hit, I was actually thinking Gibbs White or Rodgers. And then I said, everyone's going to put Gibbs White in. And then not everyone did.
Yeah,
which
I
was
was
disappointing
just
me
about
even
to say
more.
that. It's really
That
strange.
disappointed me more because I was like, bro, I went with Rodgers to be different because everyone's going to go for Gibbs White, who's just done what he's been doing and in crazy form, and no one put him in. And it was like, yeah, but
So I know that
that's one example. Yeah,
I know that I'm extremely guilty of when a player scores a brace. I just automatically assume in my head that it's not going to continue. They're not going to be able to do that the following week, and it's bitten me with a couple of players. The winger at Leeds and Gibbs White, obviously. But the one key thing for everybody to also acknowledge with this, don't necessarily just go for the form pick. You also got to try and understand what their XGI trend is as well. Because somebody can be really overperforming against their XGI in a big, big way, which is more an overperformance and it will regress at some point. So for instance, with Gibbs White, I know that is the case. I think he's performing like 2 point something over his XGI that was expected for the last 5 games. So it's a massive, massive overperformance. Is he going to be able to sustain that? Because also his overperformance is against a low volume amount of shots. So it's one of those ones where you'd actually look at it, but you also have to weigh it up, right? Because as you said, have they got something to play for? Forest definitely have, right? They're not out of the woods yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think, our friend FPL Seller mentioned this to me a few weeks ago, and to track the XGI as a kind of a trigger for who you should play in your team. And it's funny you mentioned Gibbs White, Hearts, because to go back to the question, the mistake that I really made that's really hurting is just not going with the sort of like philosophy that I should have gone with, which is the philosophy that you were trying to go with, which is the bench boost free hit. And it all comes back down to the idea of play the game properly, play it safe, play it right. And in my mind, I'm thinking that everyone's going to free hit. That's why everyone's going to bench boost in 33, right? And that's not the case. And had I just played the game properly and played the chips where you really should have played them, which it turned out to be bench boost free hit, I would have made huge gains. So, yeah. And in my bench boost, I definitely would have brought in Gibbs White as part of my 15-man squad. So, you live and you learn. And I think it's just further proof that this game is truly about playing the percentages and just play your own game. Sort of block out the noise. Stop worrying about trying to go to deviate from the crowd. It's important that you listen to the stats and you ensure that you're maximizing what you can do for your team rather than trying to let other strategies and other teams affect what your path is. So, that's the big takeaway for me, really.
Yeah, I guess when chasing as well, one of the things that is a worry is people take hits. Now, I know that's almost podcasting the kettle black as I took a hit last week, but I did that in the context of knowing that I was wildcarding. So there wasn't anything to lose per se, as long as I came out of it with sensible points from that hit that I took, which ultimately I was +2 from the hit. Although it isn't something that I would recommend. Usually you should only really be taking hits if your team is that bad per se, as in it's been hit by a load of variants, you've got loads of injuries, etc. before a deadline, and you've got to do something and you've run out of chips. Now, obviously, talking along those lines, we're talking about something in the extreme. But I know, for instance, Hots, your approach is different in some respects in terms of you will take a hit where you think it is necessary. And interestingly, even in one of our leagues, that I was looking at a player that had taken a -24 in the week that everybody was doing a bench boost, and ultimately he still ended up like +16 from where he would have been. So I guess he would feel that he was justified with it. Me being me and being so risk averse, as you can imagine, that made my skin crawl, and I was like, wow, that's different. But there are different.
Ridiculous amount of a bench boost though. That minus 24 is like, I don't know where he is in the league, but he doesn't really care. He's just thinking, I want to counter it, and just did what he wanted to do. So it's a different position. But what I would say, as you mentioned it, is yes, I've been known as hardcore hots. I've done minuses, maybe not minus 24s, but I have done minuses that have worked in times. But I would say that if your approach, for example, was a bit like Guffs's, where you did your chips earlier than let's say the template, then if you didn't save up changes as part of that early strategy, then you'd put yourself in a position where you haven't built transfers, you've used your chips early, then you've got to be open to maybe doing a small minus like you did on your side, Arc, and even though it wasn't a mega gain, you still gained 2 points because the strategy you would have to do if you've got less chips and no free transfers is whoever you're putting in, if you're going to be a minus, they've got to be a minus and they've got to be someone that you want for the rest of the season, so it's worth the minus. So, for example, we know that there's Palace is doubling, which was always doubling, and City was always doubling. If you're taking a minus for someone, let's say Munoz, because potentially most people have free City, I'm guessing. So let's just use Palace because I don't think many people have 3 of them at the moment. If they'd put Munoz in, who got 6 points this game week, then they might have taken a -4 to get him in, but they're going to have tried to put him in anyway because now they've got one person that's doubling in 36 already. So there's times double in my opinion, but I definitely agree that the way that it is now, I wouldn't be going crazy on minuses going forward. But there's still a time and a place to minus on approach.
Definitely not with the last 4 weeks of the season, though.
Say that again?
It's funny you mentioned.
No, I was just saying, definitely it's probably not the time to be taking loads of hits with 4 weeks left of the season. As much as it could create wonderful gains for you, it's more likely to get you swinging back down the league, which is...
Yeah, definitely. I guess it just depends on the team you've got.
Yep.
It's funny you mentioned that because exactly what you said is exactly what I done. I took a -4 this week and brought in Munoz, and he got me 6.
Yeah.
So
who did you take out?
Particular transfer worked for me in isolation. Unfortunately, other things were. Who did I take out? I can't remember now. But I brought in Munoz this week for that exact reason.
Okay, so you brought him in with the full process that eventually over the next couple of weeks he would gain you more than the person that you exited, which is the right way to go, right? In terms of the way you look at a hit, because it shouldn't be like the 1 week punt that I just did. It's got to be, okay, what is this player that I bring in going to give me a... Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I'm different to you, right? You've got wild cards, right? I haven't got a wild card. So any 1 week punt that you do can be sort of, erased by your wild card. I can't. So obviously I've got to have a very different thought process as Hot's alluded to, which is why I brought Munoz into my team. And
you need the glasses back on. You're moving about a lot.
I think that, going forward, what I will say, but one thing I will say is this, although the minutes form fixtures is a very important thing to think about in terms of bringing in players, taking out players, I think at this stage of the season, it's a very unique state of the game, because at this stage of the season, there is a lot of kind of like room for volatility. You're going to have teams who potentially are not going to get relegated, not going to Europe, might start bringing in some players who'll be in the fringes and giving them game time. There's a lot of injuries happening. There's a lot of teams who, like Man United now, who possibly could be in the Champions League Will they start playing other strikers? Will they start giving players more tape? Will they start having players play only hour football? So I expect there's going to be some room for a bit more risk to be taken in the game if you are trying to really aggressively chase. And there's always that thing every single season. There's always the last game of the season, the last 2 games, where someone going to get a hat trick or 4 goals. We see these huge scores on game week 38 often in years gone by. So, triple captain could be a really important chip. I mean, I know we've spoken in this game about that's probably the weakest chip in the game. But, there's every potential that, if you hold that chip for potentially the last game where there's, sun shining and certain players are on the beach, there's always high scoring games. So, look, all is not lost. I think it's always, worthwhile to stay locked in and don't give up and try to go as high as possible. But, I'm going to be aggressive and I'm going to try to do some unique moves going forward. I'm going to try to mix things up. There's no point me being safe at this point. I'm so far behind now. I might as just have a fun and see if I
off
can
the
bring in
back
some
of
players that are low young.
what you were saying
my philosophy going
and
forward.
some of what you said, Hearts, with regards to the way that we target teams, like what teams are we looking to target now? Going forwards with 4 game weeks left, knowing that there's a double, is it a simple template scenario? As in, we want 3 City, 3 Crystal Palace, a couple of Arsenal, as the defence looks like it's better. A few of Leeds, are we playing fixtures or what are we doing? Because probably useful for us to look at fixture difficulty runs at the moment.
I think it makes sense to go with clearly 3 City assets, right? They've got the extra game. They have decent games as well. The projected returns for the attack suggest that Man City are by far have the high potential for returns. So, it's just a case of what 3 City players you want to go for. And it would suggest that maybe the balance of the players if you bring into the team probably leans against maybe having 2 attackers from City and one defensive, maybe 3 attackers from City. Now, the question mark, obviously, with City in particular is, as the games go on, depending on what the results are, that might sway what City do for potentially 37 or 38. For example, if they lose a draw game and suddenly the league gets out of reach, not saying it's going to happen, then maybe they sort of change the philosophy going into the FA Cup final. So there are sort of.
But wouldn't the assumption with City be that you'd want those 3 in just for the double game week that is coming up, as well as any other fixtures they've got? Right, as in what I mean is if you got to 37 and really started getting jitters about they're probably not going to play certain players or whatever not, you'd have the opportunity to transfer them out, right?
Yeah. But what you have to be mindful of is that they got a double game week, then they got an FA Cup final 37, right? So you have to be careful about that second game in a double. Will they rest certain players ahead of the FA Cup final? Possibly. So just be careful about what City assets you bring into your team with that in mind. And also, if they are still nicking it with Arsenal, he might sort of say, well, I'm not saying he's going to, but he might suggest that the Chelsea game in Wembley is a slightly easier or less important game than a midweek game, against Brentford. So maybe he's definitely going to mix things around. He's got 3 or 4 games in a very tight span. He's definitely going to have to sort of move his players around. So what are the players you want to go for Man City? You definitely want to go for the keeper, Donnarumma for sure. You definitely want to go for Haaland. They're the 2. And I'll suggest, Donnarumma or possibly O'Reilly. O'Reilly has played a lot of minutes recently. Will he continue to keep playing him? Ait Nori is obviously fit, can play left back. I know O'Reilly's been playing in midfield, but is he someone who's going to play both games in double game week? I'm not entirely sure. But certainly Donnarumma and Haaland are 2 players that could feel confident they're going to play those games. You play Cherki? I don't know. Cherki has obviously been very good for him in the running, but they've got a lot of midfielders who can play his position. So it's a difficult one. And obviously you've got Palace, who also got a lot of games, 5 games, 59 in the season. They got European games coming up as well. They've obviously rested players ahead of league games, but there's no league pressure for them, right? They're not going to go to Europe, not going to get relegated. So you'd think that they're going to down tools in the league. So
Yeah, Palace are a difficult one. Because we've seen every time they've been in Europe, every time they've come back, they've rested a number of different players. But for instance, there are fixtures that you can also play. So you've got Leeds who have got, I think they've got Bournemouth next, but then after that they've got Burnley and they've got Middlesex, right? So they have winnable games where they still need to win. Burnley, you would presume that they could win there. And then against Middlesex, that's going to be a relegation decider, I guess, to an extent. And I mean, obviously there is the usual of looking at Arsenal, and then it's also looking at other teams that have got something to play for. So it's looking in and around your Brightons, I guess, and seeing what Forest are going to do. Liverpool and Chelsea seem to have difficult fixtures all the way through. So if you are going to target anybody from them, maybe you target a differential attacker. The issue that you've got with Chelsea is because the managerial change, it now means that we've got to suss out what the new manager is doing and what his favourites are, how he likes to play.
Yeah, Chelsea, I think I will stay clear of, if I'm honest, for that reason. There's just too much uncertainty around their lineups and around just the club in general. So I would stay away from them. I think Leeds are a good team to target defensively. I think they've been playing really well. They're playing with a lot of confidence. And we've seen in recent weeks Darlow do very well, for example. And I think if you're looking at the makeup of if I had a wild card, I would definitely be targeting Arsenal assets at the back. Arsenal are going to build their title charge off clean sheets. That's going to be a mentality. It's been that the whole way through. They're the best defensive team in the league, and they've got good games, right? They got Burnley at home. They got a Palace team who could be down in tools for a European Cup final potentially. We got West Ham away, which I think will be our Arsenal's toughest game. But nevertheless, West Ham are not necessarily the most potent offensive team, and you got Fulham at home. So you would assume that there's a lot of potential of clean sheets there for Arsenal. So for me, I'll be looking at
graphic says different, right? The predictors, the projections are not predicting that we're going to have that many clean sheets before the end of the season.
Well, you have to take into account. I mean, the only reason why City are above them is they have the extra game, I guess, right? So I think that's probably what swung why Arsenal not top of this particular league. But for me, I would be
still
putting
only suggesting one, maybe two clean sheets, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of this information is obviously based on historical data as well, right? Recently Arsenal in the last sort of 4 or 5 game weeks haven't been as solid as they have been over the course of the season in general. You would hope that with players like Timber coming back into the team, I think he's come back to full recovery. That might help Arsenal's ability to keep clean sheets for the running. So there's a number of things that can potentially help them and maybe push that projected numbers up a little bit once they kind of get their normal back five back together again. But for me, I would definitely be trying to target 2 Arsenal defensive assets at the back. The makeup of my team will be City at the front, Arsenal at the back, and probably making up the rest of my team from teams who got things to play for. So as you've already alluded to, I'll be looking at Leeds, be looking at Aston Villa still. I think they've got decent games, and I think they got their midfield back, as you mentioned last week. Forest seem to have hit their groove. So there's a few teams out there that there's some gems out there you can pick up along the way. But the basis of my team would certainly be Man City at the front, Arsenal at the back.
Are there particular players that you're looking at in relation to all of this that you think, well, these are key ones from each of the individual teams? I mean, I look at the West Ham team, and even though they've been doing well over the past couple of weeks, their fixture run to the end of the season is quite torrid. They've got Brentford, Arsenal, Newcastle, Leeds. There's no respite.
Yeah, so, I mean, if we want to deep dive into this a little bit more, there's a certain structure that and I don't know if you want to sort of chime in here in terms of who you would sort of slot into these holes, but there's probably 5 players.
I knew that Hot's going to let that go.
I said nothing, man. I said nothing. You know what I mean? I said nothing.
Well, we're past watershed now, so like, yeah, the games begin and stuff. But yeah, so what is the team looking like? Gus, where are you saying that? Where are your locks? What are your locks for the team?
So, I mean, if we look at the locks in the team, I mean, definitely you've got to be looking at probably Raya in goal. That's the starting point. And as I said, you want 2 Arsenal assets at the back, and the 2 that I think were probably locks at this point will be Raya and Gabriel. Sure. If you're looking at a Man City 20 asset, I probably will be looking at O'Reilly. Yes, there could be potential that he might get benched in one of the double game weeks, but I think he's been so good for them. He's got so many attacking returns. I think he has to be the one that you've got to be looking at from their back four. Second behind that would be Gahey, but certainly from Riley being number 1. Midfield, Bruno has to be in your team going forward. He's chasing his assists. He's the best midfielder in the game. You've got to base your ideal team with Bruno in there. And Haaland. Haaland has to be part of your front three for a wild card. I mean, yes, his form's been a bit up and down, but he's got a lot to play for, and he's still the best striker in the game. And you'd be foolhardy to not include him in your team. But the question I have for you guys is that looking at this sort of structure, A, do you agree with those 5 picks, and B, if we were to sort of like go through the black holes in terms of other players you feel are certainties for a wild card, who would you include?
So for me, based on what we were discussing in the previous segment, I'm surprised that Raya has gone in as a lock and not Donnarumma from your perspective, especially as he's got the double coming up, right? And then on the basis of some of the projected data that you were showing, they're going to be more returns city-wise, so he should go there, I guess. Yes, I begrudgingly agree with Gabriel. As many of you will know, Saliba is my favourite. However, because he's so bloody good, he doesn't get any DEFCON because he sees everything beforehand and he just cuts things out. Or positionally, he does what he needs to do, so he doesn't get that, whereas Gabriel does. When I look at the mid, bearing in mind the reality is that everybody that is doing the wild card even, or whether they've got a transfer bank built up, they're not going to be able to fortify the team with loads of high spend players, right? So I think if you're looking at budget midfielders, you can't go too wrong with Tavernier, simply because he's still performing quite well from a high attacking midfield point of view. And if the fixture is right, where there's attacking volume in there, he's probably going to get in on the act. And he's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. Weirdly, when looking at it, I've looked at Welbeck, Calvert-Lewin. Calvert-Lewin is strange. His data suggests that he's about to pop, but he's trending downwards. So it's kind of a signal to say, you know what, hold off, dependent on the fixture run. But as I alluded to previously, he's got two out of the next 3 fixtures for him are good on paper. Welbeck, there's more of a signal about regression around him. Because he's overperforming, but his minutes are starting to be unreliable. So not necessarily of that, but I do think that it's between him and Calvert-Lewin for one of the slots up front. And I would suggest that the third one, at the moment, you'd basically go for Bowen simply because he's got lots of creative volume. So he keeps just bringing in those assists, right? Whether it is whether he's going to bring in a haul from scoring a goal or not, he's getting an assist. So you kind of can't move away from him. Although we got to see over the next couple of weeks what happens now that Chris Wood is actually back. How much does that unlock Forest in terms of what they do and how secure do his minutes become? Because he's obviously having an effect. Well, he had an impact last week.
I would definitely look at Brighton assets at the back. They've been pretty decent, actually, by and large, the second half of the season. They've got, obviously, Wolves at home, which, we still have to target them in terms of if a team's playing against Wolves, you've got to fancy your chances of getting some returns, clean sheets and whatnot. And their running isn't bad at all, Brighton. So I think assets like Van Hecker, Kadioglu, who I know who's in your team, is someone to look at. I do agree with you. I think Donnarumma. The reason why I haven't got Donnarumma in this team is because I'm projecting that the third Man City asset is probably going to come in midfield. So obviously, because you can only have 3 players from Man City, that's why I haven't included Donnarumma in this particular graphic. I would definitely say Munoz is one that you have to look at. He's in my team. There is a slight chance that he might miss a game out of one of the 5 because they want to keep him ready for Europe. But he's so good going forward, and he's such a good FPL asset. So he would definitely be one of my 5 defenders for sure. I'll also be looking at sort of potentially Isak, maybe, if you've got the funds. Liverpool are not. I mean, they're pretty much secured of Champions League, but they still got to get another win or two to finalise that. And they've got okay games in the running. And of course, there's no real threat from Ekitike taking minutes off him. So, managers that haven't got their wild card to hand haven't got the versatility to bring in an Isak into the team because he's so highly priced.
Palace assets, apart from Munoz, would you be looking to, if you had the opportunity to bring in to the structure? Is there any in the midfield? Is it just Munoz and the back line?
I think Henderson's a good shout.
Yeah, definitely. I think if there's 3 assets from Palace that I'll be looking at, it'd be Henderson, Munoz, maybe Sarr. But even Sarr been getting benched a lot, I did mention a couple of weeks ago that Mateta, who was benched recently against West Ham, I think, but he does finish himself really well. He could just catch him in the right time, and he could get a hat trick. He's capable of that. So if you are really trying to chase him and be a bit dangerous, then he's someone that I would think about. But certainly 2 of the 3 Palace assets I would have would be Munoz and Henderson for sure. I don't think there's anyone really in midfield from Palace that I look at and think, yeah, he's worth a shout. In my personal opinion, I don't know how you guys feel about that.
No, I think that Sarr is a difficult one to assess because he's quite hit and miss as well.
Yeah,
so it's a hard one to plumb with him. I think, from your perspective, Hots, do you see anyone in midfield for Palace that you think actually they're worth a shot?
Sarr is just one of those ones where you don't know what's going to happen. But in a double game week, you could get lucky.
Yep.
And if he starts one and plays a part of the second, he could be the one to go for. He's their best midfield asset, I guess. So I'd consider him. But I think everyone's going to be considering Henderson, Munoz, and the back line. Mateta is one that, some people may go for, but they'll be put off because of Larson. So I think everyone's going to be looking defensively at Palace. But what's for sure is that at the last double game week, people are going to want 3. And And Saar, I don't think he's going to be favoured. So he's someone that I'll consider trying to be a bit different. But it doesn't mean I'm confident and I'd recommend everyone do it. But he's someone that I'll consider doing to make part of the free for Palace. But it could backfire.
Would you take a minus to bring me a team?
I wouldn't take a minus to bring someone into my team that I don't believe is guaranteed. I know you put down the minutes, fixtures, and form, etc. But I wouldn't do minuses for players that are minutes risks. It doesn't make sense to me, personally. Even though you could say everyone's a minutes risk, I just wouldn't take minuses for someone I know is gonna, I believe is gonna not play the full 90 minutes in both.
Yeah, I agree. So I mean, outside of the doubles of obviously Man City and Palace, are there assets that you're? I mentioned Leeds and Brighton.
The thing is, I did my wild card.
I mentioned Leeds.
My
I mentioned
team
Brighton.
for my wild card is pretty much set. So you mentioned Calvin Lewin, Welbeck. That's who's in my team already.
Yeah.
So I've got the players from there. I've got the defense from Brighton. So when I did my wild card, like I said, I planned it for a reason. The only thing I let myself down was with the bench boost. So I've got some assets that are now, for example, I've got Bournemouth assets who were the ones that was on my bench. And even you can even see that I didn't even put Bruno or Gabriel on my bench as part of my bench boost team. I left the Bournemouth players on there because I didn't change it around. So they were literally just brought in just for the bench boost. So they're assets that I don't know if I want anymore. I've got Chelsea assets for my wild card that I don't know if I want anymore. But it's who do I put in? I've got the Brighton defense and strike force. Got Arsenal assets, but I've not got the double at the back that I did before. So that's a potential move. But because Palace is in the double and Arsenal are not, I'm also got to weigh up my options now. As we said, there's 4 games left. I was honest and open at the beginning of the show where I was like, I haven't really made a decision. But what I would say is I wouldn't care much about United players now. I wouldn't care for Chelsea players at the moment. But I have 2. As part of my wildcard, I've got Palmer and Enzo. Do I keep them as differentials? As you said, Guffs, you wouldn't go near them now, blah, blah, blah. But maybe I keep them and their new manager gets the best out of Palmer and Enzo and gives me that boost that no one's got them. I don't know. It's a tough one at the moment. I was waiting for the announcement of doubles and hoping that Bournemouth will get a double because I've got 3 assets from them and now they haven't. I'm like, I got more fish to fry or whatever you'd want to say. So it's like, I just don't know. I've got like decisions to make, but I would say if you are looking at players and assets, look at Arsenal, which has been said, look at City and Palace, which has been said, and the teams fighting who have the better fixtures. So West Ham are fighting, but we know, they've defensively been quite strong, but their fixtures are tough. So if you're looking at West Ham, I would only be looking at Bowen. I wouldn't be looking at defense, even though their defense have been doing okay. I'm not sure about Nottingham Forest. Gibbs White's been in form, but as the stat man himself has said, he's overperforming. Can he keep this up all the way for the end of the season? And realistically now, not in a funny way, but it's West Ham and Spurs that are the 2 teams that are fighting for survival, and Spurs are just getting more injuries as the weeks go on. So,
there's a potential differential from Forest defense-wise, Nico Williams. So I think, if I remember correctly, he's got, I think he's 14 shots over the past 5 game weeks. So shot volume-wise, he's quite up there. And obviously the new manager has got them moving about a lot. So he could be potentially, depending on the fixture. Even is a very, very wild one, but even better. Like, he's at 2 XGI over the past 5 game weeks. which makes him relevant, not core, but somebody for you to look at for if the fixtures open up or if he's got a fixture where you've assessed that his opponent, they're weak in the central area. He could be one because not many people are going to go for him. But his underlying data is good as it stands at the moment. And you've even got Sesko, right? That you could be looking at as well. But another one that is also under the radar, we've got to look at it that the reality is Havertz is injured, so there's less of a minutes risk issue around Gyökeres right now. Obviously, it matters whether he is platformed correctly or whatever not, but we know that early in the season when he was platformed in a better way, when Eze played closer to him and so on, he was scoring goals. So he's another potential, especially with some of the fixtures that Arsenal have got coming up. And they've got something to play for, right? Well, you'd hope.
Yeah, I think Sesko's a good shout. You know, yeah, he's definitely a good shout. I think that what you don't know is Man United obviously are pretty much assured of Champions League football. So that pressure now of trying to achieve that spot is now kind of diminished. How would it affect them? You know, will that kind of like that weight or that burden be released now, release the team and they play in freedom and, you know, or it could go the other way and it could, you know, go on tours. But I mean, you mentioned before, Hots, that you don't really like Man United assets or you don't really fancy assets. I disagree. I think that Man United assets are pretty good still. And I think coming into the end of the season, they're probably the freshest team in the league. I mean, they've played fewer games than most teams in this league. And Bruno's got a lot to play for still. He's still going to be chasing those records and trying to break those records. So I think the team probably want him to achieve that as well. So I do think Sesko and Casemiro as well is another one who I think is worth a shout.
He's someone that's a must-have in the United
could
team.
be differentials in any given game week.
Apart from that, for me, the reason I'm looking at it and thinking I wouldn't go towards United assets, just to give it a bit of clarity, is because defensively, I don't know if they're going to keep clean sheets for the remaining fixtures. So I wouldn't know who I'd want to risk to put in the back line from United. Mbeumo was yellow, but he made it in the last game. Cunha wasn't, but didn't play. If you remember correctly, you actually put Cunha in and he didn't play. Sesko started the last game, but they've secured Champions League. He might get a run in the team. He may do, may not. I don't think there's no guarantees really apart from Bruno. So because there's no real guarantees apart from Bruno, I just wouldn't want to put any, like if Cunha's back, Cunha should start. I just don't want to risk it. Ahmed's playing again now. You know, let's be real, they've secured the Champions League. So, you know, the players that you want to put in, you'd get minutes from them, but it just might not be 90 minutes. And I just think there's players that will be... Look, I'll put it this way. Rodgers and Watkins, for me, will have more minutes than those type of guys that's in the United team. The problem is, I put them in my free hit and thought that they'll be trying to fight for the top five, and they flopped. But that means they can't keep flopping. I'm not going to be prepared to put more Villa players in permanently for the rest of the season, but someone else might. But I would still prefer to go with probably one of their players. Oh, I'd rather go with Watkins over Sesko, for example. That's just how I look at it personally, because I know Watkins is more likely to play the full 90. And even if he doesn't, I think that, you know, United's in a better position than them. So I guess we'll see. But I'm not going to do that anyway, because I'm not putting, after they messed up in my free hit, there's no chance I'll put them in permanently. So
who's playing first, right? That's probably a good segue before the captain, I guess, in terms of the games. I mean, I think Leeds, Burnley looks like a really good game to target. I know you mentioned before, Ark, about Calvert-Lewin, right? And he's kind of fallen off a cliff in terms of his ability to put the ball in the net. But that's definitely someone that you want to be looking
there are
at this game
assets
with,
that
Calvert-Lewin.
you'd go for, like Okafor, right? But
one question,
you're not going to captain any of them.
yeah. So I mean, captain choices for me, it's a tough one this week. It's a tough one. I mean, I have said in previous weeks that Bruno Fernandes is the lock-in pick going
Are you going to
forward.
stick to that?
And for me,
Well, it's either Bruno or Haaland, right?
I think, yeah, I think it's a tough game for City. I know Everton have been better on the road than they have been at home, but you know, it's never tough. It's never easy getting to Everton, and they have been fairly decent in recent weeks. So, you know, can Haaland go there and score a few goals? Sure, but would I be surprised if he doesn't score a goal? Not really. So I would definitely have Bruno over Haaland for this game week, especially because Man United are at home. Liverpool are not the most secure defence. These games are always full of passion, and I think Man United will be up for it. I can see Bruno being effective in this game and doing something.
So, captain?
I think for me, Bruno, just about Bruno.
Okay.
Is my choice.
I don't know. So
what do you think?
My way forward at the moment is that for each captain pick or choice that is out there, I also need to make sure that I have a look at the game state and I understand the opponent and whether it's viable. So, for instance, we know everything goes through Bruno, so he will always be a captain choice for a United game, no matter who they are playing. But, for instance, I've been fairly against Palmer for most of the season, and then obviously I got hit for 6 with him when I did my free hit. That said, they're at home. They clearly do respond to Croydon Callum. So will it be that now with Fernandes back and maybe Pedro is back as well, does that create a game state for Palmer against Forest, bearing in mind they're at home? But likewise, I would do the same looking at Saka. I don't know whether Salah's actually, they've confirmed where we are injury-wise with him, so we'll need to look at that on Friday. But Salah's very unlikely to be somebody that I bring in on a wild card. He's just too much money. And if I'm going to weigh up who I'm going to spend 14 million on, it's going to be Haaland and not Salah, especially with his fixtures. But my general lean at the moment is towards Haaland for what can happen, and actually the form that the rest of his teammates are in is the reason why I lean towards him, and he's got something to play for. But likewise, Bruno does. He's trying to break that record. The reality is, or the sad reality is, that he is going to. And no, I'm not one of these Arsenal fans that is going to talk about but where are the non set piece assists, etc. And assist is an assist as it stands. So if he gets the record, fair play to him, but he's still a rat.
Before Hawks makes his choice as captain pick, I will say one thing quickly. I do think Calvert-Lewin is a decent captain pick. I do.
Do you think he plays 9 minutes?
I think that he's on penalties as well. Does he need to? That's the question. Does he need to?
I'll remind you of what Salah reminded us.
You know, I think
statistically the worst finisher in the whole of Europe. I don't know. You have to. Yeah, you've got to have big balls to captain him. But
no, yeah. Look, I just think that home to Burnley, sun's shining, Leeds are almost safe. You know, I think they could put on a show for their you know, and I think that he could be central to that, and he's on penalties as well. So I could see him getting 1 or 2 goals. I mean, I don't think that's beyond the realms of possibilities, right? And I'm looking at that list of players we have on that thing. Am I confident that any of them are going to score 2 goals or more? I can't feel confident about any of them in this particular game week. So I think Calvert-Lewin has just as good as a chance as any of those guys of scoring a couple of goals this game week. So I do think he's a decent captain shout for this.
So as someone that's got him in their team, I'm not saying that isn't an option. Like, I'm not saying that, you know, going with the captaincy and Dominic Calvert-Lewin is ridiculous. But as someone that's had him in the team for a long time, playing against opposition that I'd expect him to score in and seeing him fail to do so, and even seeing him not complete 90 minutes in some games, and they are, I won't say safe yet, but they're in a good position now. This is the game when they should be looking at, okay, beat Burnley, and I'm not saying they're safe, but they're going to be in a very good position if they win this game too, depending on the other results. So they should be going to win this game, obviously. But having him in the team is one thing, captaining him. If he does go and only gets 1 goal and Haaland ends up getting 2, or Bruno ends up getting 2 assists or a goal and an assist or a penalty himself, then any sort of chasing that a manager may be doing, it's a very, very big risk and a bold risk. Maybe, as you said, you feel like you've got nothing to lose anymore. So maybe that would be a bold move for you and it could pay off. And next week you could be smiling thinking you got the right captain. But I'm just doing the disclaimer now. It's not a case that I'm against someone in your position doing that. But I just don't know if I would say go out there and just go for Dominic Calvert-Lewin, because I could do that myself, and I'm struggling to think whether I should do it or not. But this week I've got Palmer, as I said. I've also got Enzo. I think Nottingham Forest have been on a good run. I think Chelsea need to win. I know the top 5 is pretty much, you know, it's not secured, but it's there. But I think Chelsea need to win the next game just to like make sure they remain within that top 5, because the team is chasing. If Chelsea don't pick up the form they need, they could drop out of it. It's not impossible. So seeing Palmer and the stats provided is like, it's interesting, because it could be a game where he steps up or someone from Chelsea steps up. So I don't know if I would go a bit differential this week and consider a Palmer or an Enzo. I'm not sure. But the defaults are Bruno and Haaland, and I just don't see. My Arsenal heart tells me Everton can get a draw or something, but in reality, City don't play games when it comes to the end of the season, and I think that I'd go with Haaland over Bruno. But yeah, just don't. It's a tough game week to pick, and I think a differential will probably outshine Bruno and Haaland. So, if I'm honest, Dominic one, if he's not done nothing for so long, could it be against Burnley? So, you know, I just don't know if I have big enough balls, as Ark said, to go and do that, considering my 28 points that I wasted. I don't know if I'm prepared. See, if I did my bench boost, I might have been willing to do this right now and said, you know, I'm going with Calvin. You get me? But after doing what I did, I'm like, I don't know if I want to risk any more points. You've talked me into it a little bit, if I'm honest, because I believe he's due at some point, but I've been thinking that for ages and he still hasn't done it. So anyway,
I think
all opinions.
Yeah, and I think with him, like he's definitely one that is, like I say, he'd fall into that about to pop category because he's involved in so much. So the expectation is there. It's just, you know, trying to work out when's the right time, which is ultimately the anchor of what we're talking about here. with regards to if you're chasing or whether you're building. The idea is that even if you are chasing, you chase at the right times, right? So, and those fixtures that are coming up for Leeds, definitely they are heartening in terms of who they're playing. But like the banner says, I haven't done it all of this session. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Pointing that finger just like it says. But seriously, like and subscribe. Ensure that you get the updates from us in terms of what's going on with the Triple Captains League, as well as when new episodes are coming out, etc. It's not hard to do. Click of a button.
Indeed. Yeah, very interesting game week, and I do think there'll be a lot of variance in terms of captain choices. I think
I guess
I like
that's
these
feel,
leagues.
yeah. Just vibes and feel that you've got. Nothing telling you about effective ownership or anything like that.
No, I like this stage of the season because I think that there are so many different sort of like game states going on right now, right? You've got there are clear chasers, there are clear people who want to sort of like consolidate positions and
Builders. Just call me Bob.
Yeah, well, the theme of the show, but and I think there's also the extra added element of these teams are in different states, where they are. So I think there's so much room for a lot of kind of volatility this particular game week. So I'm looking forward to sort of see how it all pans out. And ultimately, we mentioned a few people for captain choices, but it could be someone completely left field who will come through and get a hat trick or get 2 goals. Could be Chris Wood, It could be something that we're not discussing. There's always some.
I actually
wild
think
card.
Chris Wood, is a good striker, and being back from injury and getting his first, he's been back, but getting his first goal, I think he's someone that potentially could score. I know you mentioned Leeds' defence isn't bad, but I think, let's have it right. Gibbs White is overperforming, but he's in good form. But I think he's someone that, he will be assisting and doing stuff, so he could still get some points. But I think Christopher Wood is someone that can convert. So I think he'd be interesting if you've got him in your team as well. Obviously, Art's got a wild card. I'm not saying he's going to put him in his wild card, but as we mentioned Dominic, so to finish off, have you got Dominic in your team, Guffs? Because I don't know everyone's team. You've got him, and currently, have you got him, Mark, or not at the moment?
Yeah, I've got him.
Okay, so the 3 of us have him. It'll be interesting to see if any of us do actually captain Dominic and what he actually does this game week, because
he's likely disappearing for me. Like, my heart can't take it. I'm trying to build I'm trying to build a squad for the rest of the season that I just don't have to worry about. Like,
I hear that.
Yeah, the past couple of game weeks haven't been good for me. Like, variance.
Imagine having him since before game week 30.
Yeah, well, yeah.
This is what I mean. Like, that's why I don't have the faith in captaining him. But you know what? I don't know. It's something that tells me I don't want Haaland, because I really believe Everton are going to do something, whether that's a draw or not. And Bruno, I don't respect Liverpool, so I believe he'll get an assist in that game. But Palmer and Enzo in my team, and Calvin Lewis in my team, and those are 3 players that I've got to consider. But I'm not going to be able to make a decision on that until close to the deadline. So I might go differential. We'll see. Game week soon come.
Just letting you guys know, me and my superstitious stuff, I can't accept every time we're on here you lot talking about what's going to happen in the result of our game or what you think might happen. So I'm just going to start going like this. La, 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 when you're talking.
I didn't mention Arsenal.
No, you said, but Everton, I'm expecting, they can do something.
Yeah. That's it. But I ain't mentioning Arsenal. Yeah. Like, in regards to their fixture, I've got no comments. Like, it is what it is, man. Like I said, part of my holiday was ruined by my absent bench boost, which I'll take responsibility for. Should have been double checking way before the deadline. So it is what it is, 28 points wasted. But the other part of the pain was Arsenal. So like yourself, I will not be mentioning Arsenal for the rest of I'll be talking about assets when necessary, but any sort of predictions on what they're going to do, I won't be wasting my breath. I'll just be waiting until the end of the season for that. And going forward, as I'm not a person that makes mistakes genuinely, I'm not going to stop holidays in season. I'm still going to continue to, but I'm just going to make sure that I double check, because that was such a shocker for me. And I've actually got another holiday before the end of the season.
The thing is, you shouldn't worry about it. It's what happens when you start getting on in life, isn't it?
Yeah, you get forgetful and you get that, but that weren't the case. It wasn't to do with old age. It was to do with...
Weren't you on a cruise?
Do you know what?
Isn't that what old people do?
Yeah, I was on a cruise.
What was it?
You know what?
What was the reason?
What was the reason that I forgot? Is that the question?
He remembered.
You know the meaning of... Exactly. Come on. Someone, that intelligent guy, you know what forget means, right? So it's not I did it by accident.
You didn't look at the team at all when you went...
No, so what I did is I talked about the bench boost, an episode with Salah, like I said on the show. And then after the episode, I was like, you know what? I need to do this. I swear I've done it already, but let me double check. I saw that it wasn't done when I was in England. So I thought, okay, let me activate it. When I activated it, I thought, yep, done. Before my deadline, I'll move players around and whatever I would want to do. So at that point, I thought, yep, activated. Then what's happened is when it came to the deadline, you saw me message on social media that I missed the deadline. But when I said that, I genuinely didn't know that it wasn't activated. I just thought, who cares? I got bench boost anyway. So when I saw Tavernier scored, I was like, yeah, good start for my bench boost. Then when Ark said, you really missed the deadline, that's when I was thinking, what do you mean I really missed the deadline? Like, I'm sitting in the sun like, what do you mean I really missed the deadline? I thought, hold on a minute. That Tavernier points for the goal isn't showing in my fucking team. And you know, it's when I show the bench and your team. Even when I looked at it, because man's obviously been having a bit of a drink, been Jack Grealish and that, having fun. It slipped. So, like I said, I have to take it on the chin. It is what it is. But what that shows me is even the managers who believe that, you know, you don't really make errors, you hardly make mistakes, don't get overcomfortable, don't forget yourself. And if you are going to go on holidays during the season, which I've done many times and will continue, make sure if you're a serious FPL manager that you don't make that error that could be costly. And this error has costed me 28 points. And I would never be in this situation again. But, you know, it is what it is. I have to move forward and I will. But yeah, hope that answers your question, Guffs. And I hope you're still not answering that question to try and compare it to what you said is a mistake, because I broke down it before and I'll break it down and I'll break it down again. Something that you forget to actually do, yeah, you can class it as a mistake. Something that you activate and you press to activate.
They both are mistakes.
Activated.
Yeah, that's very clear.
I'll beg to differ, because you see, when you didn't understand what the question was, if you don't mean to do something, that's a mistake.
Don't take that full process up to the pearly gates. God doesn't look at all sinners the same.
Yeah.
No, on that note,
mistakes are mistakes.
Let's pray for the next game.
Let's leave it there.
Indeed.
Like and subscribe. See you later, folks.
Truth be told, when I wonder what the future holds.